So the Oklahoma City Thunder were not that good last season, and there was nothing really wrong with that because it was obvious they were going in the rebuilding direction. And in the 2021 NBA draft, they ended up getting the 6th overall pick, where they selected Josh Giddey. And a running joke around the NBA is that the Thunder have a crazy amount of first-round picks, which is true because they have the most first-round picks over the next 6 to 7 years in the NBA, and they have multiple first-round picks every year for the next 5 to 6 years. That's really crazy. But although it looks like the Thunder might have a bright future, there always is a chance that a bright future could get ruined. Don't forget, they had Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant, and James Harden all on the same team, and they still couldn't get a championship out of it. And in today's video, I'm just going to be discussing how I would ensure the Oklahoma City Thunder have a bright future. Before we get into the video, I ask you to drop a like on this video as it does help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content, and if you want to help me reach my goal of 1,500 subscribers. Also drop a comment on this video if you want to start a conversation with me, and play that intro. The first step I would take towards making the Oklahoma City Thunder have a bright future is by starting Josh Giddey straight out of the gate this season. And I know Giddey might not be the best point guard straight out the gate on this roster right now, because I think Theo Maledon or Ty Jerome are probably better right now, but I think Giddey clearly and obviously has a way higher and just has more potential than both of those guys. And you took a risk of taking him with the 6th overall pick, because most people had him going around the 8 to 12 pick, and a lot of people say he has a high bust potential. So this pick definitely has to turn out into a positive for you, and I think it would definitely be beneficial for Josh if he came straight into the NBA. Felt like he had the confidence from the franchise to be the starting point guard, and obviously with more minutes he would just gradually improve. I definitely think he's gonna struggle coming straight into the NBA. I think he's gonna play really bad, to be honest. I'm not a hater, but that's okay. He's just a really raw prospect, but I do think he can do well in the future, and I think letting him play a lot of minutes early will help him reach his potential, which I think is as high as an all-star player, because he's a 6'8" point guard who could dribble decently, pass really well, and he can even shoot decently. And if he can turn some of those decent level skills to good skills, he definitely can be a great player. A guy like Theo Maledon or Ty Jerome are players who at best are going to be starting, like average starting guards or good backups, and that's the absolute best for them, whereas Giddey's going to be an all-star player at his peak. And when you're a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who's not trying to win a crazy amount of games, you're definitely trying to prepare for your future, and by doing that you give most of your minutes to your future. The second step I would take to ensure the Oklahoma City Thunder have a bright future is to make Darius the third option on this team. The reason I say this is because I think Bazley is the most underrated player on this team. No one really talks about him, but he's a guy who has star potential, and I think he's going to be a decent starter in the NBA, because a lot of people were expecting stuff out of him last season, but he didn't really do that well, because although he averaged 14 points and 7 rebounds, he did it on a disgusting 39% from the field and 29% from 3, and he's a power forward. But even though he was very inefficient, you have to realize Bazley is only 20 years old. He has plenty of time to improve his efficiency, and last year he was taking 12.5 shots per game. I think he could easily average 18 points or somewhere around there next season if he just cleans up his efficiency to be at least average. You also have to realize that a big reason he was inefficient was probably due to the fact that this team was not talented at all, and they probably forced him to do a little bit too much on offense, and on defense I think he could focus a bit more. But with the improvements of other players and just himself improving, I think he can improve to reach his full potential, and I think he's actually a decent shooter and a really good defender. Like, he has the potential to be that. He has a lot of skills to be like a great player and a great four in the NBA. He just has to put it all together, and I think making him the third option this year will actually show how good he truly can be. The third step I would take to ensure the Oklahoma City Thunder have a bright future is to not tank this season. And obviously I'm not saying the Thunder should go out there and try and make the playoffs, because I don't even know if they would be able to make it if they tried their absolute hardest. But what I'm saying is that they shouldn't tank and be like one of the worst teams in the NBA, because first of all, I'm not going to act like the Thunder are not absolutely loaded when it comes to their amount of draft picks, meaning that they don't really need a lottery pick as bad as much other teams. But also something that's not talked about a lot is that when a team has multiple, and I mean multiple, losing seasons of just being like terrible, they tend to pick up bad habits and losing habits, which causes the team to not be as good as when they're actually like they're not going to be as good when they're actually ready to start winning games, because they have losing habits that stick with them. For example, them not trying hard on defense every possession, not doing proper rotations, just turning the ball over, making dumb passes, things like that. I think Oklahoma at least has the potential to be one of the best teams in the league with the amount of draft picks they have, because they could literally trade for any star or they could draft multiple stars, and it would really suck in the future if they had like a great team but they weren't as great as they could be just because they had multiple terrible losing seasons. I'm not saying they need to go out there and get the 9th, 10th seed, because I don't even think it's too crazy to think they could do that, because before Shai Gilgeous got injured, they were actually doing pretty well. But I think that they should try and get like the 11th or 12th seed, and that little difference can make them a way better team in the future. I think it's worth it to maybe go down 2 or 3 spots in the draft, because you're going to teach your young players winning qualities. And I know a lot of people might disagree with this point, but yeah. The 4th step I would take if I was the Oklahoma City Thunder to make sure their future is good would be to focus a lot on the young talent this season. The thing I really like about this Thunder team is that their whole roster is literally just young players. I really like the idea of that, because you don't have veterans that you need to play or anything like that. You can only focus on the young guys. And the Thunder are actually building their roster perfectly. Let me get to the point. They should be playing a lot of the young guys, and I'm not talking about the obvious players who they're going to play like Shai Gilgeous, Lou Dort, Darius. Talking about guys like Pocheskeski. He's a guy who had a lot of good games last season, but he also had a bunch of atrocious ones. There was a part in the season where he looked like the worst player in the NBA. He still might be one of the worst players in the NBA that actually gets playing time, but at least he's shown potential, and he has like the height, the skill to maybe be a really good player in the future. And I doubt if he doesn't play, he's ever going to reach that potential, because he's really raw. They also drafted Trey Mann, who's a guy who looked like he'd be a solid scorer in the future. They also have Theo Maledon, who looks like he could be a solid point guard in the future. He's just a really solid player. They have Isaiah Roby, who's one of the more underrated players on this team. He had a few games last year, and he's a stretch big. Ty Jerome had some big games for them last season, and he was shooting really well from the 3-point line. I wouldn't mind seeing him play on a different team, just because I doubt how much minutes he's going to get on this team with already 2 solidified guards. But this is just a team filled with a bunch of young talent, and yes, I know they're going to have to trade a lot of these guys, kind of how they did with Moses Brown, even though he had a good season last year, because not everyone on this team is going to be able to stay, because they're going to be picking so much guys in the draft who are probably going to be better than some of these guys. But nonetheless, I think focusing on the young guys will show you which players are good enough to stay with you in your future and things like that. To conclude the video, I really like the Thunder's future. They have just so much good young talent, and if they just left the roster the way it is, I definitely think this is a playoff team in the future. But with all the picks they have, they could potentially be a dynasty if they draft well. But with the Thunder doing really well in their future, I just have to say I really love what Sam Presti's doing running the team. I literally don't have anything wrong to say about this team. They might be my favorite rebuilding team in the NBA right now, and I'm not a Thunder fan, by the way, so just congrats to the Thunder on having a bright future. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. Let me know whether or not you think the Thunder have a bright future. Drop a like on this video to help my channel grow. Subscribe to my channel if you want daily NBA content, and if you want to go 1,500 subscribers. Also drop a comment on this video, as I do respond to all of my comments, and I'm out.